Maybe you should go and do some contemplating.
Right reasons, right reasons. Can't put a girl for all the right reasons. Right reasons, right reasons. Can't put a girl for all the reasons.
I'm the Bachelorette and I'm rapping to you poolside. Here to find true love, one man from the whole.
Hi, this is Rachel McElroy.
Hi, this is Griffin McElroy.
This is Rose Buddies.
I sound like two hams two wet hams that have been pressed together, and then somebody's blowing into them as though they were going to make a fart noise.
And that someone is Harvey Firestein.
And that someone is Harvey Firestein's making ham farts. He's got an artificial ham diaphragm, a diaphragm, and he's making fart noises with it, and he's talking about this double episode special. Gang, I feel like a Harvey Firestein ham fart right now, but these two episodes of television are too important for us to not put out an episode of the podcast.
This is going to be an unusual episode because both of us will be stone cold sober.
I hate it. What's Griffin drinking? Tea. Tea, oh yeah, a little bit of that Irish tea. No, just tea, for survival.
We got a lot to talk about this week, guys.
We sure do. The first thing we should talk about probably is that we will not have an episode next week. Just get that out of the way. Just rip that Band-Aid off. There's no episode of The Bachelor next week, and that's fucking perfect actually because I'll be at E3.
Yeah, we were going to have to bring in a guest host to
but we fill
your spot, but it looks like there's no episode to discuss.
This week, we have a lot to talk about this week because it was a double episode, two-header, double episode special, and kind of a triple episode. It has a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
So they're definitely, it's going to be a triple episode special, and then they're just going to keep that combo going as long as there's to be continueds to go around.
Yeah, just a few quick things that came up with that cliffhanger after the Monday night episode. You only redraft after rose ceremonies.
Yeah, no matter where it comes in the episodes. And we had to make that rule after the last couple seasons because the last couple seasons is where they started doing these.
Yeah, Caitlin's season especially.
Every episode in Caitlin's season.
Maybe it's more common on The Bachelorette.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, you draft after the rose ceremonies. So for instance, if somebody goes home during a one-on-one or perhaps a two-on-one day, you wait until the next rose ceremony to draft back up. Let's get into Rachel McElroy. Sing me the Ballad of Chad. The first stanza of the Ballad of Chad.
Well, do we not want to go chronologically through?
I don't. If there were other boys.
There were other boys.
If there was other boy. All right, yeah, let's start unpacking.
Okay.
I feel my spirits are buoyed.
So this first episode on Monday night starts off with the aftermath of the previous night's cocktail party.
A ham mess was everywhere.
Yeah, there were meat plates.
By the way, mad props, big shout outs to our friends Dan and Shayna who showed up to this episode viewing party with just a big little cutting board with some cold cuts on it. Yeah, kick that fucking glass of water over. Yeah. All over that rug.
What do we do? Should we stop?
Well, why don't you talk and I'll get a towel and clean up your drunk mess.
It's just water.
You're a disaster.
The one thing that was nice about this two-part doubleheader series of episodes is that we got to see a lot more Chris Harrison. So I will say that one thing that was fun was that when we cut to the aftermath of the cocktail party, there's a lot of toilet paper everywhere, and we get to see Chris Harrison play at cleaning up the toilet paper, which if he's only going to be on camera for 3 minutes an episode, you got to believe he's not cleaning up toilet paper. But it was a fun goof.
You don't know that. You don't know that. That might be a part of his contract. I'm having to talk in your mic, by the way, because I'm cleaning up your water mess.
Thank you for doing that.
It's a lot. It was the full cup.
I know, it was.
Do you want me to get you more water? Because now you don't have anything to drink.
I would kind of like more water.
Good Lord.
That's not your towel, is it?
It is.
Why did you do that?
I don't need any backseat rug drying.
Okay.
Monday morning rug drying.
So this episode really sets up the Chad and Daniel romance, or bromance, some might call it. We get to see them talk about working out and working on their back and abs, which they affectionately call babs. And then Chris Harrison drops off a date card, and the date card is for Chase. And so Chase gets to go on a yoga date with JoJo. And I'm going to pause here because I have a feeling Griffin will want to weigh in. I just got to the place where...
The yoga date, yes.
Yes.
The look on Chase's face, and he realized the subject matter of this date. There was no hiding this. Like fucking Mission Impossible facial prosthesis would not mask the disappointment on Chase's face when he found out he would be doing the hottest, screamiest, most upsetting to watch yoga I've ever seen in my entire life.
JoJo says that she has always wanted to try yoga and has never done it.
And she still hasn't, because I don't know what the fuck they did in there, but that was not yoga, as I call it.
It starts out, they're laying on their backs.
Do British people call it yoga?
I would assume so.
Because they call yogurt...
Probably Canadians too.
They call yogurt yogurt.
So, well, first the yoga instructor, air quotes around yoga, asks if they've been intimate, which is an uncomfortable question for them.
You hit that?
And then they lay on their backs and thrust their pelvis and say, hey, 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 hey.
And why? I guess if I were to like start with one question, it'd be why were they doing that?
Yeah, it's not clear.
It's not clear is the problem.
And then she instructs them through a tantrum exercise in which she encourages them to shake their bodies and yell in what she calls as a angergasm.
That's, first of all, the only kind of orgasm that Chad can have.
It's good.
Thank you. But it's also sadly not a thing. And if it were a thing, if we were to live in a fantasy world where that were a thing, it would not be a yoga thing. It wouldn't be a yoga thing.
No. What would it be, Griffin?
It wouldn't be a yoga thing. It would be I don't know, some form of like juggalo sign language or something like that. But it wouldn't be a thing when like I'm trying to get my chill on and trying to lower my fucking blood pressure in here because I live a very, very, very stressful, like fast-paced life. And I just came in here like bend my body up and like get chill and connect with Buddha in this yoga studio. I certainly don't want to hear somebody like having a screamgasm in the other room.
Oh, and it was hot yoga, by the way. It was like 100 degrees in there. So they are sweaty.
Do you think
all
yoga
this.
places, when like hot yoga became like a thing, they're like, oh, tight, we don't have to pay for air conditioning anymore.
I bet. And then they do something called a yub yum.
Which was my favorite Ewok.
There. Can you name some Ewoks?
Wicket is like the only one that people know. I think there was one called Jub Jub.
Yeah?
Yeah, but Wicket was like the main one.
I feel like that was also the name of a Simpsons character.
Maybe.
It was the name of Selma's lizard.
Oh, yeah. So this was they made love. I've seen, I think that there are situations that people could enter into where there is penile insertion that is less intimate as this was. Because this was, he sat down, she straddled him while he was sitting down.
Should we do the rest of the podcast in that pose?
I would get you sick. I don't want to do that to you,
Oh,
Mama.
that's true.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah, the purpose is to put your hearts in alignment and to put your third eye in alignment.
And to put your penis and her vagina onto alignment.
Needless to say, they end up smooching in this pose. And then they go to a vineyard where they have dinner. Chase reveals that he is a family of divorce.
He's a one-man family of divorce.
Okay, yeah, you're right. That phrasing is confusing.
His elbow broke things off with his forearm, and his finger kids have to get 2 Christmases now.
Okay. He gets a rose.
Here comes Uncle Leg, he says.
He gets a rose. They go see a band, which is apparently the singer from Lady Antebellum, Charles
You don't know
Kelly.
that. Do you know that for sure? Did you Google that? Because one of our friends said it, and I might be able to
Yeah,
also.
no, I confirmed it.
Okay.
And they dance.
That's good research, baby.
You're welcome.
I didn't thank you for it.
Would you? Would you thank me for it?
Thank you for the research.
Thank you.
No, you don't thank me for thanking. Oh, God. We got to go over. We got to listen to Schmanner sometime.
So then it's on to group date time.
This is all that matters to me.
And early in the series, the group dates have a lot of people. Later, of course, when there's less people, they get more sparse. But
Yeah.
this group date has Jordan, Grant, Wells, James F., Christian, Ali, Daniel, Vinny, Nick, Evan, Alex, and Chad.
The Chad is in this one. I forget which one this was. Oh my God, no. Of course I don't forget
No,
which
you
one this
remember.
was. This was the best. This was a fucking all time. This was such a good one.
Yeah.
We thought, here were the phases that we went through. They were brought into a theater, relatively small, like black box theater. What's wrong?
Well, there's more stuff to talk about before we get there.
Oh, sorry. What happens?
Chad throws a little fit because he's bummed he's going on a group date with all these other bros. And Chad talks about maybe not going because he's like, well, I don't want to go if there's this many other guys.
So the other boys who, and this was not in like a playful like Jubilee way, from Ben's season when she was like, oh, I don't know about this. Where she was like just joking. Chad was like, no, I don't want to go on a date with 16 other boys. No, that's not Chad.
Yeah.
There were dudes who like hadn't had a one-on-one yet though, and also were not on this group date and knew that they weren't going to get a date, and so it was a little shitty towards them.
And this is where they start to get personal on the attacks. Jordan makes some comment about saying, oh, well, Chad better hope that it's a weightlifting competition and not a spelling bee. And this is when Chad really goes after Jordan and says, like, you're a 27-year-old failure.
You're a failed football player.
Yeah, like, you've done nothing with your life.
I would actually argue if you ever make it to the pros, like in any conceivable way, you are actually a very successful football player compared to like the 99.999% of collegiate and high school football players who never make it that far. But you know what? I might just be a little defensive because he's the sibling,
The brother
the
of
best
your
quarterback.
beloved Aaron Rodgers. And then Alex starts to join in the attack on Chad, and then Chad gives Alex a real stare down for a very long time.
A lot of people calling a lot of other people pieces of shit.
Yes, exactly.
Lots of that.
And those are swear points.
Those are good swear points. My boy Chad racked up that 5-point cap like every fucking episode.
Yeah.
Love it.
Okay, now they go to the Black Box Theater. And a lady comes out on stage and begins making groaning noises.
So we're like, when they walked in the theater, it was like, oh my God, is this going to be a stand-up challenge? Please, God, no, anything else. And then the woman walked out and started to make an orgasm sound. Not a yell-gasm, not a Chad-gasm, a regular one. And then I thought, because I'm kind of unfamiliar with the subject matter, but I thought it was the vagina monologues. And then I was the most excited I've ever been in my whole life.
Griffin, you know that I was in the vagina monologues, right?
I do. Which one did you do, though?
For 2 years in college.
Wait, 2 years? Was it a fucking, like a repertory, like, just like every month you guys would put that on?
The Feminist Alliance would put it on every year. And for 2 years in a row, I did it.
Which one did you do?
Because he liked to look at it.
Okay. The only one I think I really know is where the woman she says this P word and
the C word, yeah. Mm-hmm.
A lot.
Mm-hmm. That's called reclaiming C word.
Reclaiming C word. Okay. And apparently I don't know it that well. What is because he likes to look at it about, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, this is going to be uncomfortable.
Okay.
A woman grows to appreciate and love her own vagina because a man makes her feel like it is beautiful.
Oh, well, that's very nice.
Yeah, it is
I don't think
nice.
that's uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Well, but, it's not usually...
The kind of thing we talk about on the podcast?
No, not on
This is a
Rose
sex
Buddies.
positive podcast, I like to think.
Okay.
Just wait until that fantasy suite. That's where we find out how sex positive we really are.
Speaking of sex positive...
Holy shit, this date. Okay, for real though. For real. I cannot fucking believe that this date was allowed to happen.
I don't know how it came about. I can't figure that out.
Because there were a lot of, explicit references to, cunnilingus.
Yeah, they really had to edit down this episode because there was a lot of content they could not show.
But they definitely defo left a lot in. Uh-huh. And it's like, cool, ABC, a product of the Disney. That's like rad.
So this is something called sex talks, where individuals get on stage in front of an audience and talk about sex, and all the men on this group date, and there are a lot of them, are instructed to tell sex stories on
There's
stage.
a little bit with JoJo that was like a weird, like, I'm so down with it, but it was like a weird thing for the main bachelor or bachelorette to say, which is like, sex is awesome. And I think we should be able to just like talk about sex and like not have it be like a big deal, because it's like it's a part of every relationship. When typically this show treats it as like
exactly,
this,
especially with the Bachelorette.
Yeah, I mean, we had the whole. Maybe this was in response to
Caitlyn,
the Caitlyn season where she had sex not in the fantasy suite, and it was a whole fucking thing for the show. It was that was that season for like 4 episodes of that season was just that happening, and then the reactions to that, and it was gross and terrible. And maybe this was kind of a pivot.
I mean, I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too.
And so Evan, who is on this group date, is instantly excited because as a erectile dysfunction specialist, he is primed and ready with stories.
Yeah. No, it's definitely, I mean, later in this episode that happened today, Jordan got to go on a football date, and I would say this is an equivalent, like...
Yeah, this was Evan's football date.
Yeah.
And so backstage, they're all preparing. We see Evan and Alex talk, and Evan reveals that he is going to stoke Chad's fire, which is not what he says, but it's what I wrote in my notes because I'm a poet. Mm-hmm. And so we know Evan's going to get up there and he's going to do something crazy.
Some highlights from the date. Was it Ari that gave or Ali that talked about the threesome? No, Wells told a story about the setup was this. Like JoJo was talking about like the different stories, and it was like running through a bunch of different ones, and they were fine. We gotta touch on Daniels.
Yeah.
We gotta touch on Daniels, because Daniels was about like, so at this point, I had her tied up, and I just reached down, and I just cut off some of her hair. I don't know why. I guess it's weird. Yeah, Daniel. Damn, Daniel, you're a serial killer,
Daniel would be the star of this season if it weren't for Chad. 100%.
Yeah. And that's, I guess, that's a real shame. Hey, Daniel, it fucking sucks, dude. It's a shitty story, bro. It's a bad thing, dog.
Yeah.
No thanks, bro.
Yeah, I don't know why he thought, like, this is going to be a fun story I'm going to tell in front of the girl that I want to go out with me.
Wells's was the best, though, because the way they cut it, Judge was like talking about this supercut of like sex stories, and then it showed Wells laying on his side with his legs splayed apart, making a fart noise, like really, really loud and like shaking. And then it cuts to the presenter for the night, like after Wells had left, walked up and says, Wells, thank you for that story about a very interesting threesome. So like you, the viewer, was like... He was showing him farting a huge fart, and then she was like, cool threesome story. And everybody in the room was like, I have to know that story.
I know. Well, you're in luck, because he posted it on Twitter very quickly. And it was just that he was visiting, like, he was having some kind of rectal exam.
Yeah, he was seeing a proctologist. And
and there was a nurse pushing on his stomach, and he...
I guess farted on the proctologist.
And made a joke about how that was the worst threesome he'd ever had.
Oh, Wells, I love you.
Wells.
Never change.
So when Evan gets on stage, and I'm skipping a lot of good stories, but in the interest of time, we'll just go straight to Evan. Evan begins telling a story about the impact of steroid use on men. I assume at some point he like brings this back to how it can affect your sexual ability, but all we see are him talking about the symptoms of steroid abuse. Which are, you know, just like what is basically a description of Chad. It's just like irritability and rage.
Eats meat, only eats lunch meat. Chad does not like this.
No, Chad is not happy. Chad.
This is where we have our first moment of Bachelor violence. By the way, if you have either of these people on your team, this is a physical confrontation. That's how we judge shit, and we got points from that. Because if this doesn't count, I don't know what the fuck does. Because looking back, I don't think there's ever been a time on Bachelor or Bachelorette where two of the contestants just fucking beat the crap.
Well,
out of
it's the combination of actions, right? If he had just pulled on the shirt, which is what he does, when Evan's trying to walk by Chad back to his seat Chad interprets this as him trying to push him, and so he grabs his shirt collar
while Evan is like leaning down to like
hug
say something, to
JoJo.
hug JoJo. He has like his arms around JoJo when Chad grabs the back of his shirt and yanks him back. So like not very stealth Chad. Like you literally did it on JoJo.
And one thing that was fun about that shirt grab was that after it happens, there's some nice Foley work, and you hear like a, which is like very clearly not a shirt ripping.
Yeah, it was bad.
So that happens, and then they get backstage. Chad punches a door, and then
Oh my god, no, baby, you can't. Chad gets up there
Oh.
to do his sex
Yeah.
story. And his sex story is he says, JoJo, will you come up here for a second? He's like, I don't want to talk about a sex story from my past, and I don't want to know about your past, because all that matters to me is the future. And he puts the mic down and leans in for a kiss on JoJo, and JoJo fucking gives him the coldest, like, cheek turn. And she
And
actually
then
says, like,
pushes him
she
away.
says, no. And she says, is that all you have? He's like, yep, that's it. And then he goes to put the mic in. You can't put the mic back in the stand, which is great because it's a thing about sex talks. How's your innuendo? Pretty bad, I think. And then he just takes the mic and like throws it across the stage, and it's very good. And then he goes backstage, punches a door real
Yeah.
hard,
yeah,
gets an owie on his hand.
and then confronts Evan and comes at him with a hand towards the throat and pushes him.
Yeah.
And that's when I thought, okay, this is
That's
a
it.
physical fight.
Yeah. He also like lunges at him again a bit later. And Evan, who I consistently refer to as the brave little toaster, because this fucking dude doesn't back down. This little dude.
Yeah.
Evan is not especially afraid of him, which is amazing because Evan is about half of his size.
And this is when Chad says, if I can't lift weights, I'm going to murder someone. Which is a real good,
Really healthy sort of attitude.
yeah, really appropriate. And then the date continues. Then they go to this like little weird mystery place that has
They go to some weird
strange furniture.
You know that shop that you go to in the beginning of the Oregon Trail to like outfit yourself?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
like where they were.
Yeah. And they're all having drinks. And this is, you know, it's the regular montage of like dudes getting close to JoJo and talking about things. Chad keeps coming in trying to steal JoJo away. And she is not.
She like turns him down.
No, and she's not interested. And then Chad just goes and sits around the side hallway and is like whistling and making noise. And Nick is upset about this.
He's being he's being childish, but he's also being like, I think he was also pretty uncomfortable in this moment. Like, it's not often that you go and try to break up a like convo and get turned down by the Bachelor or Bachelorette. I have to imagine your pride at that point is wounded beyond repair.
Yeah. This whole Chad arc is one of watching this man make mistake after mistake and just feeling very conflicted about how badly he is doing.
Yeah. So he finally gets this time with JoJo, and she's like, what happened there? And he gives her this line about how Evan's bullying him, bullying the bully. She's like, wait, are you the bully? And he's like, well, that's how they perceive me. It's like, whatever, dude. And then Evan comes in and steals JoJo away from Chad, the first of many times that Evan just like stays in the fucking mix.
Yeah.
And the most amazing thing that has ever been said on this television show, Chad's a fucking monster. And he definitely like, that stone tumbles way downhill past the point where I can find him even remotely admirable for the tea that he drops. But he does say that he's like talking about Evan and how he's like a failure or whatever. He says some nasty things about his kids. But then he says like, he's Gary Oldman from The Fifth Element.
Yeah.
And that's patently hysterical. That's absolutely the funniest fucking thing that anybody's ever said on this show.
Rose Buddies, you'd appreciate it. I immediately recalled that somebody had posted this in the group several weeks ago.
Yeah.
And was just like, yeah, no, of course he is. We already noticed that.
I'm going to go ahead and put the captions on blast, because the captions translated that as Evan's the gay one from The Fifth Element. That's not what he said.
No, that's not what he said.
Caption person. He's Gary Oldman from The Fifth Element.
Chad knows his cinema.
That's too good of an amazing burn for you to mistranslate it like that in such a hateful way.
Another thing that happens is Evan is confronting Chad over and over again. He does it when they're in the group, and he asks Chad, why he's here. And he says, "You owe me an apology and a new shirt."
Which is a weird one of those, like, kind of undercuts, like, the honor of the other. You owe me an apology. And of Old Navy blue V-neck.
And that's about it for the group date.
Was there another? There was another one-on-one. Can I please request that we just burn this one-on-one down? Because it was an old-timey Back to the Future fun romp.
Well, we should say Evan gets the rose on that date.
For being such a brave little toaster.
But not before he gives an ultimatum and says, "I don't want to stay here if Chad stays here."
Yeah.
And JoJo says, "Well, I can give you this rose. I don't know if you can accept it because I'm not ready to make a decision about Chad." And then she comes back to the group. Chad sees that Evan got the rose. Chad says, "Is this real? Is this a real scenario?" And JoJo says, "I don't appreciate what you're doing." And then by the time they get in the limo, Chad is just irate that Evan got a rose. So then it's the next morning, and there is a security guard on campus.
Okay, so let's talk about the security guard. Because they tried to play it off like it was like a funny thing. They tried to play it off like the security guard was like walking around always in the distance, and he was like a prop, right? And they would play like the Bachelor fun music.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the goofy Bachelor musical sting when this security guard was on camera. I think that has to be like a thing that you legally...
Yeah.
If somebody assaults somebody else, which is like, that's what that was. It was a little bit of assault, but it was still assault. Either the person who assaulted the other person has to leave the show, or you get a fucking security guard up.
Yeah, I became really fascinated with what the protocol is on this show. Like clearly they have a list of if-then action response situations. And this was one of those, somebody has been pushed. Somebody has made other contestants feel threatened. Now we have to enact the security guard procedure.
I think about the Are You the One when Mike assaulted Amanda, and he got booted off. But even when he came back to get his shit, like there had to be security guards there with him. Like that has to be like from a liability perspective.
Yeah.
That has to be like a thing that your show fucking has to cover itself.
Yeah, because if Chad, had actually really like broken somebody's arm, they could come back and say the show didn't do anything.
The show didn't do anything,
me.
and they knew it was gonna. Yeah.
So the security guard's walking around. We don't really, nobody seems to really spend a lot of time talking about it. It's addressed. The contestants are aware of it.
Yeah.
But we go right into to the James Taylor date.
I've seen Fire and I've seen Rain, but I've never seen a date that bored me this much.
Oh, Griffin.
It was fine. It was like a little, like, 1940s little Pleasantville little slice of pie.
Yeah, they get all dressed up in like, what is it, like 40s clothes and hair. James is wearing a nice set of suspenders.
An older woman teaches them how to dance and talks about her dancer husband.
Yes.
It's very nice. And then they go to some sort of weird box social where they have been time traveled, and everybody's fucking swing dancing, but they can't swing dance. They can do like a two-step.
Yeah. It's cute. And then there's the newspaper.
JoJo looked phenomenal.
She did. She had great hair and makeup.
Looked wonderful. How do you feel about JoJo? Let's take a little quick break from talking about Chad for so much. I think she's very, very good at the game.
She is. She's definitely made some moves this week that suggest that she's a woman that knows what she wants and she's not afraid to express it.
Yeah, I think she is good at the game. She's good at making like everybody feel included. Obviously the things she's doing are mandatory and thereby kind of scripted, but I think she makes it feel very, very natural.
She is not particularly funny at all.
I would give you that. Yeah.
Which I'm missing because Caitlin was funny. I would say
Caitlin was funny. Emily was very funny. I thought Emily was
Yeah.
very sassy, especially and when Emily sent home that dude for saying that her daughter was quote unquote baggage, that was like short of that woman whose name I fucking will never remember. I will never remember her name. Starts with a C. She's Juan Pablo season. Came in second place. Got booted off.
Claire.
What the fuck? Why can I never remember Claire's
know.
name? That was the harshest burn send off I've ever
Yeah.
seen. But otherwise, Emily turned. I kind of hoped that we would get some of that from JoJo.
From
in this
JoJo.
episode, but
Yeah.
no such luck. Anyway,
on the
I like JoJo a lot.
I'm still waiting to fall in love. It takes me a little while to open up.
It sure does.
They get out on this car at the scenic overlook. James, of course, has a guitar in the trunk and is prepared with a song he wrote. And the song basically seems to be about JoJo and Ben. It's all about a woman making a mistake and confessing her feelings, and a man making it seem as if he has the same feelings, and then the woman finding out she's mistaken.
Kind of a weird thing, bro.
Yeah, very
I wrote a
clearly.
song for you. It's about your last boyfriend.
Back at the mansion, this is when Daniel and Chad have the Hitler conversation.
Oh my god, the Hitler conversation.
Chad is eating a sweet potato, just out of his hand like an apple.
Like one would eat an apple. Like one would eat a ripe apple. Fucking this exchange. I think Chad's I'm so conflicted on Chad. I think he is an emotionally and physically abusive guy. I
Yes,
think he's a bad person.
but he's smart.
I don't know. I don't even fucking know about that. But
His
he
sense of humor
he possesses
indicates
a comedic timing
Yeah.
that I think may be entirely unintentional, but is a rich and pure, and I would drizzle it over pancakes. Because Daniel is trying to talk to him about how he isn't comfortable hanging out with him anymore because he makes the other guys in the house hate Daniel just because of how negative a person Chad is. And
Yes.
Daniel says, "Let's pretend you're Hitler." And Chad, without missing a beat, says, "Let's not pretend I'm Hitler."
and then
Daniel walks it back
Daniel's
through worse and
all right,
less
well,
worse.
What about why don't you just more like Mussolini or Bush?
Or Trump. He's like, be more like Trump or like Bush. He's like, I don't like that. He's like, all right, can you at least just dial it down to Mussolini for me?
And then Chad, in response, doesn't seem to agree to anything, but does eat a piece of lettuce.
So how's your din? Because you just ate a yam and some lettuce. That's not balanced, my boy.
So we find out Chris Harrison appears again, which, I love seeing him. I love hearing him talk. I was so grateful that he was in these episodes so much.
Do you think he is a genie in a lamp and they just rub him whenever they need him to come out? Probably, yeah. Now you're thinking about it.
I am thinking about it.
Is Chris Harrison a genie?
But it's got to be a recent capture into that lamp, because he used to be on the show a lot more.
I think it was Caitlin's season is when they
Put him in there.
Here's what I think. I think he bet his freedom on Juan Pablo's season. And I think he was like, this is going to be the
That's
best
perfect.
season ever.
Yeah.
I love this guy. I think he's hysterical and amazing. And it blew up in his face so hard that the ABC people, the fucking Ursula, came to him and extended the golden contract and was like, sorry, Chris, you know the deal. I'm mixing my Disney
You are,
Disney
a
cartoons,
little
but
bit, yeah.
into the lamp with you. And he said, no. Someday he'll meet that bachelor that doesn't pick either of the last two contestants and instead uses his wish to release Chris
Griffin,
Harrison.
I love that.
I love it too. I'm working on it.
Okay, so Chris Harrison informs the guys there's no cocktail party, And they all look around nervously, and he says, it's an all-day pool party instead. The guys are like, you should have led with that. That's much better than we thought.
And then Evan grabs Chris and rubs his lamp, summons him, and says, I don't feel safe in this house. Chad tore my shirt. And Chris is like, oh, he tore your shirt? Yeah, Chris, he tore your shirt. Get out of the fucking lamp sometimes and pay attention to, like, the monitors, the TV monitors backstage.
Chris kind of victim shames him a little bit. He's like, well, there's a lot of testosterone here, you know, like, the kind of stuff happens.
Yeah. But Evan says, like, I feel unsafe. A lot of dudes feel unsafe. There's fucking security guards here. This is crazy. So Chris...
And then Chris is like, I'll handle it. And then he pulls Chad aside and basically tells Chad, hey, here's your chance to settle it. Like, go in there and settle it. And then Chad starts saying, like, I'm going to tear this world apart.
He says, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to tear off everyone's arms and legs and throw their torsos in the pool.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of torsos in the pool. And I thought, that's a horrific, but also, Chad, still pretty fucking funny.
I know.
That's a kind of a funny mental image you've just created. I just wish he wasn't such a fucking dick.
Yeah, no, he's the worst. And this is when we get the to be continued, which leads us into tonight.
So if you're Slylock Foxing it from home, because the commercial for this two-parter was like, it showed bloody knuckles, and it showed like Evan bleeding from his face, and it showed James Taylor bleeding from his face. And so watching this, you're like, oh my God, Chad is going to murder these kids. But then if you've watched like a single episode of the show before, you know that that's just how they do it. I think I maybe called it. I hope I called it.
Well, we know the bloody knuckles is from when he punched the door.
Right, so that is one clue that has been like taken out of the equation. Anyway, we get back in the pool party. They're just hanging out with JoJo, having a good time. Evan jumps in the pool, weird, I guess, and gets a bloody nose. It's like, well, that's another one. It's another one out of the mix.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Evan and you see a man who...
You see Gary Oldman from The Fifth Element.
You see Gary Oldman and you think, I bet Gary gets some bloody noses. And he does not disappoint.
I mean, I'm sitting here with like a fucking sinus infection, so I can't like get nasty on a dude for having a dumb nose. God knows I suffer from it. But it does happen a lot, doesn't it?
For Evan?
For both of us.
So this at first starts out like just an 80s fun movie, which is a technical term. The guys are getting in chicken fights. They're doing synchronized swimming. Everybody takes their shirts off. They're playing with pool toys. It seems like, everything's great.
Can I tell you something?
Yes.
I don't like chicken fights.
I don't think anybody does.
It makes me nervous, doesn't it? Because, like, if somebody falls, if, like, one of the top people falls forward onto the other person's bottom person, and have, like, a head-on collision, that would fucking hurt a lot.
Well,
or if you fell backwards and hit, like, the edge of the pool, you're dead. You've died.
And as a woman, if you are the chicken instructed to fight, it feels very hugely objectifying.
Yeah, but, and as the person on the bottom... I don't want to have a big person on top of me when I'm in the water, because if my knees buckle and I drown, it's so dangerous. Don't chicken fight. I got nervous watching these big boys doing it, even.
If you take nothing else from Rose Buddies,
don't chicken fight, please.
Don't chicken fight.
It's pool season. Don't fucking chicken fight out there. There's better ways to do your things.
So Chad tries to explain to JoJo why he was mad about Evan. And he says, it's like, I didn't understand why you could like him and like me. It's like, if I'm going to take you out to dinner and I'm asking you, do you want ice cream or steak?
Dog, you can have both of those things in the same meal, Chad. Both of those things are both very, very good.
Well, and the whole premise of The Bachelorette is you get to have both.
Yeah. Chad just hates other boys. He hates other boys, no matter where they are, what they're doing.
But while Chad is explaining this, Evan interrupts.
So Evan is kind of riding his jock. Like, that's Chad's whole thing is like, I just want everybody to leave me alone. I just want Evan to leave me alone. I'm not a bad guy. It's just people come at me and then I get aggressive towards them.
I don't know what Evan would have done this season without Chad. Like, we should acknowledge
that he is like the orphaned twin. That's a terrible way of putting it, but from last season when one of the twins got sent home and the other one didn't have much of an identity, and so her whole thing was just coming after Olivia, I think. I forget.
Yes, it was.
Just as there is a villain role in every season, and then there is a sub villain. There is also like the person, the core tattler, and none of those people ever fucking win, unless you're Courtney Robertson.
So after the pool party is over, Chad's upset because he's overheard a lot of guys talking about him, and so he picks Derek and pulls Derek aside. And Derek just says, hey, she asked me about you, so I told her, you've been making some misogynistic comments. And Chad is like, oh, is this like the first beautiful girl that you've ever seen? Like, is she really the most beautiful girl you've ever seen? I'm just so tired of you guys acting like she's so incredible. And Derek's like, yeah, she is the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. And Chad's just like, oh, well, are you just like obsessed with this show and like watching all the previous seasons? And Derek's like, yeah, why would you not watch the show?
That's the thing, man. Like, Chad puts up a lot of air balls. Like, a lot of his balls are air balls.
Well, his whole argument is that, like, this is ridiculous that you guys are so into JoJo. And the guys are saying, like, yeah, that's why we're here. Like, he refuses to believe that this is, like...
Yeah, and at first
really
I found that endearing because I thought he was familiar with the system of the show and saying, like, I'm going to bring a new authenticity. No, I think it's literally that he doesn't understand. I think when he showed up and there were 26 other dudes there, he was genuinely shocked.
Yeah, I think he thought, like, oh, I'm going to go on this show and maybe I'm going to like her and I'm just going to give it time and see if that happens. And this is giving him the benefit of the doubt if the scenario is correct. And so he's confused when all other guys are like, hey, I know JoJo. I know a lot about her and I already like her. And he's like, what? How is that possible?
Anyway, let's get into a date. Let's go on a date.
First, rose ceremony.
Oh, fuck, that's right.
So who gets roses? So Grant, Derek, Jordan, Luke, Robbie Wells, James F., Vinny, Daniel, Alex, and Chad.
The Chad gets one. And that's in addition to Evan, who had one from the date, and all the people who got him for dates.
And James Taylor.
James Taylor and what's his face? Nobody gives a shit.
Chase.
What's his Chase?
So since Chad gets a rose,
we lose some good soldiers, man.
Ali goes home.
Ali, I liked you, man. I liked your style. I liked your stuff.
With his impressive eyebrows.
And his incredible cover for Elise.
Christian with his
aspirations to be a good space granddad.
Yeah, space granddad.
Space grandpa, I'm going to miss you.
And Saint Nick, Santa Claus, goes home.
That's a shame. I did like him.
So there's a toast, and JoJo announces they are leaving the mansion. And then I think maybe they're going around the globe.
Oh, where could they be going? The Bahamas? Could they be going to
Spain? Just anywhere in Spain?
Shanghai? Seoul? Where could they possibly... Pennsylvania, here we come.
Nemacolin, Pennsylvania.
Everyone's favorite place to find trees. It's Pennsylvania. Come to our house. I fucking can't.
JoJo gets there by plane. We get to see her in like a little biplane. The dudes get there by off-roading in vehicles in the mud.
I gotta stop you. Both the JoJo and the men took large commercial airplanes from Los Angeles to Pennsylvania.
I'm sticking with the fiction, though.
JoJo didn't go on a fucking cross-country biplane. She'd have to stop like 19 times to get gas on the way. And these boys didn't off-road from LA to Pennsylvania. They'd have to like drive through the Rockies to do that.
Okay, Griffin. So they get to the very nice resort in Nemacolin, and the date card comes in, and Luke gets the date. Luke, as you'll recall, is the one at the beginning that gave JoJo the nice pair of boots, came in on the unicorn, seemed to be an early favorite. So we are excited also because he is on our team. And their date starts off, they are riding a dog sled. And they are riding this dog sled to a wood-fired hot tub.
Which just seems like a lot of work, doesn't it? The whole thing. You got to take care of a bunch of dogs. And then you gotta make your own hot tub.
Yeah, Luke has to chop the wood as a display of his strength.
Spoiler alert, he apparently doesn't do a very good job because he creates like a little sulfur volcano.
Yeah, the tub is very, very hot. So much so that Luke has to hold JoJo and then very daintily
cook her.
Cook her
alive. It was probably one of the most ghoulish things I've seen on this show. The screams will stay with me forever.
They both talk about how much they love Nashville and Austin, which I appreciated.
And how much they're going to miss having skin.
And then they go to a supper club, hideously burned.
It's just horrific.
Covered in bandages.
Chris Harrison has to feed them soup.
Soup. Man, that's unfortunate given how hot they are.
It's what they made for dinner, okay? Beggars can't be choosers. It's Pennsylvania.
Not just anywhere in Pennsylvania, Griffin.
Nemacolin, Pennsylvania. I'll say this, it actually looked tight as hell. That seems like the kind of resort I could really sink my teeth into.
Yeah, you big hiker.
Well, I mean, there's like waterfalls and wood-fired hot tubs. You know how much I love those. And just, I like resorts in nature because it's like camping, but also you can have like a nice hotel room in there.
So JoJo tries to find out more about Luke's what she calls relaxed confidence, because he's just a very stoic man, and he tells a story about how he was recruited to play football for West Point, and then was kind of unprepared for the demands of college, and then became a lieutenant in Afghanistan and a platoon leader. And he had a older friend that was killed in action.
Yeah.
And that kind of gave him an approach.
Another delicate like conversation that JoJo kind of just stumbles into, like Jennifer Connelly in The Labyrinth. It's just Labyrinth. It's not The Labyrinth. Sorry, I thought you were going to correct me on that, so I thought I'd get ahead of it. Because she's like, tell me about those dog tags you wear around your neck. JoJo, 9 times out of 10?
Yeah.
That's like... It's good to talk about that stuff, but just like you kind of like barge right into it. I inherited this dog from my mom. Oh, how's she doing?
Well, I mean,
I inherited the dog in a legal battle. We ran a small business together.
She's got to get something out of Luke. Luke does not volunteer anything. She she has to take risks. And so he gets the rose. They go to a venue where everybody's holding up their phone. And who's on stage but...
Drake and Josh.
Your favorite band and mine.
Drake, The Sweet Life of Josh and Cody. Zach and Cody.
Dan and Shay.
Dan and Shay. Evan and Jaren's younger brothers. What if Evan and fucking Jaren had been up there? I would have lost my mind. Are you kidding me? What's your favorite Evan and Jaren song?
Well, yeah. Will you remind our listeners about Evan and Jaren?
This distance I've ever known from my head to my heart. There's that one. And
no,
there was,
people don't know that one.
Fucking The Distance. That was a good one. I can't take the distance. A lot of songs about like the distance between objects, the relative distance between objects.
I feel like you're not singing their number one, which I can't remember now what it is.
Crazy for This Girl.
Crazy for This Girl. That was their number one. Anyway, it wasn't Evan and Jaren. This is not a useful tangent. And so they dance and they kiss. It's all you would expect. But it's date card time, and it's a group date. And there has been some speculation that whoever doesn't go on this group date is going to be going on a 2-on-1. Griffin and I
remind us what a 2-on-1 is.
Griffin and I are familiar with a 2-on-1, but for those of you at home that are new to the series, 2-on-1, 2 men enter, 1 man leaves.
Sometimes no men. Well, sometimes both men leave.
Yeah. 2 people go on this date. There's only 1 rose to be had. Whoever does not get the rose has to go home.
I'm going to ask that we burn this next fucking group date just to the ground.
Okay. So the date card is for a large number of people, and they are playing football at Heinz Field. They're greeted by Ben Roethlisberger and two of his friends whose name I didn't bother to write down.
Friends or fellow football
They're
men?
football players.
Okay. They might be friends. I don't know.
So the dudes run drills, which is what you'd expect. Jordan, who is on this date, Natch, and reveals to us he was a quarterback at Vanderbilt. So he will be playing quarterback for both teams. The guys on the group are divided into teams after they scrap for a while. And
Evan does get a bloody nose.
Evan gets a bloody nose. James Taylor
Gets fucking clocked.
gets hit in the face, starts bleeding profusely.
Like a lot of head blood. Like a
Yes.
ton of it.
So much so that they're like, you are going to need stitches. And he's like, well, can I keep playing?
And then he does like an over the, like, in the moment interview where his head is like bandaged like he's like leprous or something. And there's just blood like all over his face. He's like, I just want to get out there and like impress JoJo.
Put me
today."
in, coach. Put me in, coach. I'm
Like,
ready.
hey, Rudy, you're fucking dying.
He has blood still running down his
I can
face.
see your brain, James Taylor.
This is real gross.
I can see the little songs that you have floating around in there that you're writing.
Wells is on this date, and I was initially worried because I was like, oh, Wells doesn't do great with physical challenges. But you know who's worse than Wells? Evan. And so Evan took off some of the heat on Wells.
Wells didn't make any of his own blood come out, so...
Although Evan defines his mode that day as beast mode and is really putting in his best effort.
I'm impressed with Evan. I will
Yes.
say this. He's a brave boy. He gets in there and he fucking mixes it up. He's a smaller boy than the other boys.
Yeah.
But he'll get in there and mix it up.
So the game is tied with like almost no time left, which I don't know how they decided how much time. It's 5-on-5. Derek intercepts, turns the ball around as one does when they intercept.
It's more of a strip than an interception.
Yes, that's true. And he gets the game-winning touchdown.
Congratulations, blue team.
And so James, Vinny, Evan, Derek, Robbie, and Jordan get to spend the evening with JoJo.
Some movement for what were the big moments? I think Jordan had the biggest one where he was like, he kind of laid it out for like, I feel myself falling for you. And JoJo was on this thing about like not feeling like Jordan was very good about talking about his feelings. And so Jordan was like, here they are, what's up? And he got the rose for that day. Did anybody?
He did.
Anybody
Robbie has a showing. Honeysuckle Robbie like lifts her up, puts her on the pool table.
JoJo says Robbie made her feel sexy.
Yeah, he really puts himself out there a little bit more, which is good because Robbie has given nothing to nobody all season. Yeah, so Jordan says, I take a little time to open up, but I feel like I'm falling for you. They're by a fountain. They make out. He gets the rose. And so then we get confirmation that the 2-on-1 is happening because the date card comes and it's Chad and Alex.
And these boys start scrapping. These boys basically scrap from the moment they are given the date card to the moment of the date. I think
Everybody keeps trying with Chad. I mean, I will say there are people like Luke who just keep trying to give Chad a chance to explain himself.
Is it that, or is it like Chad's obviously a piece of shit? I think there was more than a little bit of bear baiting going on here.
Oh, yeah. No, I will say people like Grant and Alex and Jordan and Evan really enjoy getting a rise out of Chad. Whereas people like Luke and Daniel seem to be like, hey, Chad, please say something that will make me like you.
Yeah, but that's not like... But at a certain point, you have to know he's not going to give you that ever.
Yeah.
And to just fucking leave the dude alone and let him burn himself down, which is like... And that's what people like him always inevitably do. I think there's people that just like kind of poke him because they have fun with it. And that obviously doesn't excuse the shitty response that those people have to that poking. But like, come on, you know better than that.
Yeah, I mean, they're forcing the issue, and if they had all just kind of stayed away from him, Chad probably would have lasted a lot longer.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Which, spoiler, sorry for those of you that aren't there yet.
Well, you're listening to a Bachelor recap podcast. You gotta know what's up. The biggest thing that I think that happens before this date
Chad and
is
Jordan.
Chad literally threatens Jordan's life.
Jordan's kind of fucking with him, and Chad says, "You don't think I won't come find you after the show? You won't think I won't come to your house and kick your ass?"
Which is like way over the line.
Yeah, it's a little much.
Like, even if you haven't, like, what is there a point where you have threatened somebody enough that you are not allowed to be on the show anymore? Obviously, I think if you punch somebody, you're done, right? But I think, can you say, like, I'm going to come to your house and murder you, Aaron Rodgers' brother?
Well, and in previous seasons, the villain usually has an issue with maybe one or two people. But in this case, in this series of 2 episodes, Chad goes after Alex, Chad goes after Evan, Chad goes after Jordan, Chad goes after Grant, Chad goes after Derek. Like, it just keeps happening. Yeah. So then they go on the date, and everybody back home is talking about how this is a battle of good versus evil. At which point I told Griffin this is like an Avengers movie.
Yeah.
Because everybody is saying Alex has to win, Alex has to come back, Chad has to be defeated, Alex has to be the one to do it.
It's like an Avengers movie, only I want to date everybody. That was a joke that a woman said at the Sex Tales date. That really stuck out to me. It's like talking about all the handsome men. It's like an Avengers movie, only I want to date all of them. Do you mean like the Avengers? They're all like attractive Hollywood celebs. That doesn't make any sense.
The comedy choices on this show seem to only be good when it is coming directly out of the contestants' mouths.
Yeah. Amy Schumer had that episode.
That's true. That's very true. So Alex and Chad go to the woods. They're going to go hiking. And
which, like, come on, Bachelor producers, it's a murder spot. That's where
they're in a secluded area with axes.
It's actually pretty. I will actually say, I think it was pretty short. Like this 2-on-1 date.
2-on-1s usually they only have one activity and then they knock it out.
The activity they knocked out is Alex gets JoJo aside and says straight up, Chad just threatened to murder Jordan once the show's over. And then Chad and JoJo get some time and says, JoJo says, "Did you threaten to murder Jordan?" And he's like, "Well, you're not in the house. You don't understand." Because they pushed me. Yeah,
he's like, "Well, I haven't touched anyone." Which
is, like, not true. But also, you just can't fucking threaten to murder somebody. And his response, she's like, "You can't just threaten to murder people." And he says, "You aren't in the house. Like, you don't know. Like, they pushed me." And she says, "That's not a good response." He says, "What do you recommend?" And she says, "Not threatening to murder somebody."
Exactly. He tries to turn it on her. It's like, "Oh, are you saying when you were on the show, like, everybody was great?" And she's like, "Yeah, no, women would ask me questions, but I wouldn't threaten them if I didn't want to answer." And so she's like, "Oh, you know what? I'm emotional. I need time to think about this." She gets up and walks away after she has given Chad a chance to explain himself, and he has not done so.
And he does a little fucking Kill Bill whistle walk back down to Alex. The Bachelor really wants you to think that Chad's going to murder somebody.
Tells Alex that he's not happy with him. "I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed." And then they exchange
some idioms that some space aliens came down and taught him.
Something about hay in the barn.
He said, "Hay's in the barn, dude. Pigs in the castle." Alex says, "Hay's in the barn, dude," which I think means like it's all like it's the hand is dealt, it's all over. But then Chad responds, "Pigs in the castle," and I think that was him just being a smartass, and it was like kind of a funny thing. And Chad walks down to like see him and does this little murder whistle, and instead of murdering him, he just lays down and says like, "Life's not always blueberries and paper planes."
Yeah, that's got to be from a movie or something, right?
I don't know.
Chad's big on movies, as we know.
At this point, I think Chad knows. Like, I think Chad knew before. Like, as soon as his name was not on the group date card, Chad knew he was going home. And these are
the other thing Chad says is that he's telling Alex to chill out and leave him alone. He's like, just like sit down and drink some milk. And Alex is like, "I don't want any milk. I'm not going to drink milk. I don't like milk." And Chad's like, "You should. Milk's delicious."
He says some genuinely great stuff.
Yeah,
I could see a parallel universe where Chad was not a piece of shit and was it could be like the audience surrogate, which is like a role that is almost never filled in this show, but when it is, it's like really genuinely great.
Yeah.
But like, no, that ship is so sailed. He's such a dingus.
Yeah, so JoJo comes back from her little solo time and says, Chad, I don't think you are who you think you are. I don't think physical violence is ever the answer. You know, this is not going to work.
She says, I'm going to say goodbye to you here. Doesn't even like walk him back to the car.
Yeah.
Like, just like, go walk in the woods, fucking Sasquatch ass. And Alex hugs her and says, oh, this is the happiest I've ever been. Which is kind of sad. And then cut to Alex and JoJo having a drink in a cabin. It's night. And we get this fucking stupid Friday the 13th like view of Chad like walking through the woods.
Meanwhile, the guys back at the house are celebrating. Clearly, producers have given them literal party poppers and beverages, and they are shooting off confetti and cheersing, because once Chad's suitcase is gone, they know it's Chad that was eliminated. But we keep getting these jump cuts back to Chad walking through the woods, and it's dark, and he's whistling. And
then he comes and knocks on the glass door of the cabin, and you see a producer like run down the stairs and say, "It's Chad. Chad's at the door."
Yeah.
To be continued. Fuck off.
And the other thing I don't think you saw, so he knocks on the door, and then he kind of like drags his hand down the glass slowly.
This is what I'm talking about. Like, this shit is obviously not to be trusted, because now we know Chad never hulks out and like punches a guy.
Yeah.
Right. No matter how hard they want the commercials to make it seem like Chad's not gonna fucking kill all these people in this cabin with an axe, because we'd have heard about that.
What's weird is that they tease the week after next episode, and they make it seem like Chad sticks around and raises more hell.
Shows a lot of people crying. Shows JoJo like crying, like, I didn't come here for this. Like, that's not Chad. Chad's not going to be in the next episode for more than 3 minutes.
Yeah, I know.
JoJo's going to be like, get the fuck out of here. Or Chris is going to get summoned from his lamp and do
an exorcism,
a capricious wish. Just wish him away up into the sky. That's not how it's going to happen. Like, Bachelorette. I know he's not going to murder anybody, Bachelorette.
Yeah.
You can't show like Chad like climbing into a spaceship and be like, I'm going to go to Mars in the next No, because it's not fucking sci-fi fantasy.
They're going to keep intercutting him in every episode the rest of the season, just like standing in the background.
Just like his fucking head, it like pops out of a lake, like in Lake Fear. Just like, eh.
Everybody was asking in the Facebook group, and it's a fair question, why this was a 2-part double week or double episode week.
Well, because they found a dank story nug.
Yeah.
And they're going to chase that shit down. That's why it's a fucking 3-parter now.
It's because Chad is out, and they know that America loves him and can't get enough of him.
But like, real talk. This season's about to get mad boring.
I know.
Or at least more boring than it was with Chad on it. Chad's an asshole, and like, we need to confront this fact as a nation. He's a completely horrible person.
Fingers crossed that Daniel steps up and assumes the role.
Daniel did some good work in these past couple episodes, but like, despite the fact that he's a serial killer and he admitted that creepiest fucking thing I've ever heard anybody say on TV. Chad did some entertaining stuff. He's a bad dude. This is an entertainment product, and he did some entertaining stuff. As like gross as that is to say, like, that's the thing.
Yeah.
And now this show is about to get more boring than it was, and so like, they are stretching the fucking Chad juice out as much as they can, because once it's gone, it's gonna be the fucking it's gonna be the James Taylor show or something.
Griffin and I were talking about the group date that Chad wasn't on, and how the guys are all sitting around and they're having these like genuine, sincere conversations about how they feel about love and their chances going forward.
Yeah.
And it's just like the kind of stuff that makes for good guys and boring television.
Yeah. Last season, we didn't have a villain, right? In Ben's season of The Bachelor, there were people who were trying to like shoehorn into that role, and it was clumsy and bad. This season, they did have one, and so they were like, we're going to squeeze every ounce of villain juice out of him as we possibly can.
Teaser would indicate that there's maybe a contestant that has a girlfriend back home, and that maybe the guys start getting jealous or frustrated with Jordan. But that's all your basic stuff.
We'll find out in a couple weeks. Final thoughts? What are you thinking? I still feel like Jordan's going to run away with it.
I'm happy to see Chad go, even though I recognize that he was good television, because it
Got us a fuckload of points. He got 56 points in week 2. That's insane.
He got us a lot of points, but it was uncomfortable to watch at a certain point.
He went too hard. And like I actually had to confront this idea I had of like, and in that first episode where he kind of stood out, I thought he had this like legitimacy, like this like earnestness, and talking about how like and how by the end of the episode you could tell that the long hand of the producers had like placed itself on his shoulder, and like it's time for you to be it's time for you to be the villain. But then like in this episode, like the shit he was saying, it didn't seem like play acting. It seems like he is a piece of shit, like abusive dude who like reacts to situations where he does not feel like he is in control by threatening people and being like an aggressive asshole. And that's not play acting for the show. That's just like, that's who you are.
Yeah. But Luke, clear front runner.
Luke,
James
Jordan, James Taylor.
Chase seemed to be a big front runner this week. I don't know, but then there's people like Evan, who I think Evan's probably feeling victorious that Chad left. He'll probably go home next episode.
That's it for this week. Thank you all for joining us. I need to go get in bed.
Yeah.
So again, we won't be here next week. Taking a week off to lick our wounds. Well, fuck that. No, I'm going to be in Los Angeles playing with the PlayStation 5, hanging out with Crash Bandicoot. I will miss you.
Me or the Rose Buddies?
I'll miss you, my wife. I'll
miss you too. I don't know what I'm going to do. No Bachelor, no Griffin.
No. That's the only 2 joys you have in life. Should we talk about the baby that's growing inside of you?
Yeah, I put it in the Rose Buddies group. Thank you to everybody who was excited for us. We are very excited.
Yeah. Rachel's having herself a little baby, and
so are you.
So am I. And so are you, the audience.
And the timing is such that we will have this baby right before the season of The Bachelor starts.
So we're naming it Ben Higgins. We're very excited. It may impact the show recording schedule, which is why it's germane to you, our listeners, but
not for a long time.
Not for a while, yeah. Anyway, thank you for listening to Rose Buddies. I've been Griffin McElroy.
I've been Rachel McElroy.
Kind of a weird. I'll still be.
And we will still be those people.
When you're
next
ready.
time. When you're ready.
Final rose. Stay with us on this journey of joy.
Spoiler alert.
She ends up with Soldier Boy.
Right reasons, can't get girl.